Hello, welcome back. Welcome back. What happened in the last one? We have a devil that wants us dead now, and the boys, so that's not good, but what do you expect? What do you expect? Let's see, let's continue. Quickly, I found an old office. A desk and chair sat by the far side as a large bookshelf of documents and memorabilia donned its nooks and crannies. There were a couple pictures of me growing up peeking from the shelf as I walked further into the room. I don't believe I've been in here before. I tried to recall memories of ever seeing this room, coming up with nothing as a result. This room was new to me. Did I want to disturb the furniture? I'm curious. I gently opened the shelves and any drawers I saw in the room, and a couple of them were books and even sewing kits. I assumed they were used for my grandfather's toys, so I left them alone. One drawer, however, was locked, no matter how many times I pulled. Grr, come on, open! Nothing. It would not budge. The drawer beside it, though, did revealing a laptop. Why is there a laptop in a drawer? I lifted from the drawer and carried it over to the desk and chair, on opening it. It was a high-tech laptop with a retina scanner as a pass lock. I was not sure whether or not to try to unlock it or not. I decided to try. I turned on the computer and leaned my face near the retina scanner, lining the camera up with my eye. To my surprise, I heard a ping come from the computer before the screen opened to a desktop. Look at that! On the desktop were documents and folders labeled with different aspects of the Anderson Company. Taxes, profits, bylaws, products. Lists went on and on. If I really did want to become the CEO of Anderson Toy Company, I had everything about it at my fingertips. Dad would sure be impressed. One icon, however, stood out from the rest. Virgo? I double-clicked the icon, but no window came up. Instead, I heard a large click from one of the drawers that was locked. What the? I slowly left my seat and walked over to the drawer, attempting to open it again. It slid open smoothly in the direction of my pulling hand, revealing two books. One was a plain black journal with a tie to keep it closed. The other was bound in leather with cryptic symbols all over the cover. I took out the journal and skimmed through it, seeing my grandfather's notes. They were all detailed explanations and opinions on his findings on demon magic. He really didn't know about magic. I sat down at the desk and read through the journal further, finding drawings and sketches of symbols and magic circles, each with their own different meanings and effects. It was all fascinating. There was even a page of important spells to know. I read through them, trying to memorize them into my mind. I don't know what came over me, but I started to feel more energetic and more powerful simply reading my father's notes. I suddenly was aware of the energy that surrounded my body and the power that was around this house. The more I read, the more powerful I became. However, my mind suddenly froze, and I found myself walking back to the drawer, putting the book back and closing the drawer. The lock reset, and I snapped out of it. Huh? What? I shook my head and looked at the drawer, realizing what I've done. I walked over to the desk to reopen the lock, but suddenly felt the need to stop. Something held me back, and I didn't want to pry any more that I already had. I was curious beyond belief, but I obeyed my thoughts for now. Eventually, I would come back and look onto it. I returned to bed, feeling the weight of the morning drag me under my covers to try to sleep again. I had energy, but I wanted more sleep. It was Sunday, and nothing was happening today. Come on, eyes. Back to sleep. I shut my eyes and tried to slow my breathing. I looked at my phone to check the time once again. It was noon, yet it felt like I hadn't slept for much longer. Why is time going so slowly? I sighed and changed into normal clothes and went out the main hall and sat on the stairs. Sundays were boring. However, the muffled sound of battle caught my attention. Huh? I quickly went into the backyard in response to the noise I've heard. In the yard were all 5 of the boys practicing fighting. Sam was in the middle with the other four surrounding him and throwing punches and kicks at him. Sam, being the strongest of the bunch, blocked and dodged each almost masterfully. All at once, the boys looked at me, frozen in their movement. I just stood at the doorway staring at them after my outburst. James was the first to break away from the group, stepping towards me.
Good morning. We apologize if we woke you up.
No, it's fine. I've been awake for a while now. I'm sorry if I interrupted.
It's quite all right. We needed to stop anyway. We don't want to overwork Sam.
Oh, come on, I can handle more than those pity punches.
Your mind seems grateful that we've stopped.
Shut up, Damien.
Oh crap, we should probably make some lunch. I'm sure you're starving.
I can handle lunch if you like. You all seem to be very busy training to beat Malix. I'll take care of it today.
Whoa, seriously?
Yeah, why not? I'm not useless. I know how to cook and do other stuff too.
Well, no, I wasn't insinuating.
What he means to say is that we'd be really grateful if you could make lunch today.
Haha, no problem. As I turned to the kitchen, the boys went back to training. They seemed very determined to get better and to become stronger. Might as well make lunch today. It's been a while since I've cooked. Lunch wasn't particularly high. I decided to make... because why not? I assembled simple ham sandwiches for all of us. After I poured some potato chips on the side of each sandwich, I felt satisfied. Who said lunch had to be cooked? I placed the food in the dining room. However, none of the boys were there by the time I brought the final dish out. I carried the dish to the main lobby, catching the boys separating into different rooms of the house. Part of me wanted to go into one particular. The other part of me wanted to just leave them be and take the food in my hand to my room to eat. Maybe I could go out today while the boys focus on training. We're gonna find one! Quickly rushed back and grabbed a second food dish before hunting down one of the boys. I found James in the library sitting in one of the comfy leather seats reading a book. As I stepped in, James looked at me very closely before closing the book and standing.
Oh, hello.
Hey James, I got you some lunch for you.
That is very kind of you. Thank you.
James took his food and sat back down, placing the book he was reading on the table in front of him and setting the dish on his lap.
I'm sorry. I should have asked you first before exploring the house and finding this room.
Huh? Oh no, you're fine. Remember, you live here too, so any room of mine is free to be in.
Still, you're the master of the house. I should have asked.
It's fine, really. James nodded at me with an understanding smile before eating his food. I followed along and ate with him, taking the one open chair beside his. We ate in silence, listening to the ambience in the room. Soon, however, I became a little restless. I put my food down on the table and lifted the book to examine it. Love and Romance, a study of intimacy. James let out a small nervous cough before he stopped eating and placed his food on the table.
Demons and humans are very different when it comes to affairs of the heart. I merely wanted to try learning a little more while I had the chance. I found that while I was looking around the room and had only just begun reading.
Love is different to demons? How so? James smiled before crossing his legs, getting comfy for a small lecture he was about to give.
Love isn't just a human emotion, miss. Demons like us feel them too. In fact, incubi and succubi feel emotions the most because of our link to sexual energy. However, we don't really experience love. We know of lust and passion.
But passion drives love.
For humans, yes. For demons, it fuels our need to breed and increase the strength of our lineage as well as quells the hunger we have for sexual energy. It's very hard for us to develop feelings from passion, despite how easy it may logically seem.
You hunger for energy? I could tell I struck a nerve with James. As I mentioned the word hunger, his arm twitched, obviously wanting to do something other than remain on the armrest of his chair. He continued speaking regardless.
Sexual energy is our natural food source and is one of two ways to keep us alive. In the abyssal planes, there are many demons to feed off of who are always willing to give their energy up, so sexual hunger is never an issue. In the human world, however, we've come to realize that getting energy is a little more difficult.
Can't you just touch a human for their energy like you did all to me with, or like you all did with me?
That only gives us so much. A touch is merely a taste, while Intimate sex is a banquet for us.
I guess that was true. Humans weren't all about sex and were probably a lot more conservative than demons, at least. It would be hard to gain sexual energy from a human without doing something to them or catching them in the right mood.
This is why we have a mind-altering ability to convince humans to give in to their desires. It's not 100% effective, but it gives us a better possibility to get what we need.
What if you don't feed on sexual energy? What's the other way to stay alive?
Food, typically. However, we're weak without actual sexual energy. Without sexual energy, we become less than human. We have no power nor moral consciousness. We basically start to become unfriendly.
Unfriendly? Oh, what? Whoa, 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 whoa. James didn't reply. He simply stared at me, unable to answer. However, I could tell he was. He was clutching his armrest tightly, digging his fingers into the leather. I gently leaned close to him from my chair and reached to rest my fingers over his. If you really need energy, I'll help a little. No sex, but enough to stop the hunger, okay? Once again, I was greeted with silence from James. He seemed very nervous and uncertain about what to do, now that the approval was there. He also frozen with my touch, softly and barely twitching at the feel of my skin against his. I could feel his hand grip the armrest harder. A small feeling of boldness ran through my body, forcing me to cover his hand completely with my own before leaning nose to nose with James in seriousness. Alter my mind if you're concerned about me. I really do want to help you out. All of a sudden, why the sexy music? Okay, we get in there. All of a sudden, I felt something in my mind snap and ooze into the warmth, fluffy feeling I felt before Sam and Eric. I felt my body slightly heat up as James released the armrest and gently took my wrist. He gently pulled me out of my chair and onto his lap, having me straddle him with my thighs. He stared deep into my eyes, his own glowing in hunger that I would never expect to see from him.
I won't go overboard.
Before I knew it, his lips were pressed hard against mine, my head being pulled to his by his hand on the back of my neck. I gently moved my hands to his shoulders and chest, melting into his lap and enjoying every feeling that ran through my body. I felt hot, desperate, and in need of more than just his kiss. One of my hands slid up his neck into his hair as James lowered his kiss to my neck, gently groaning against my skin. I couldn't help but let out a small whimper of pleasure before reaching up and covering my mouth. I didn't want the others to hear me, and I was positive neither did James. James lowered his free hand to my lower back, pulling my body against his. I felt my energy slowly draining, causing me to cuddle closer to James, holding on me. He lowered his hand to my waist, squeezing it tightly as his tongue ravished my neck. His hand that was on the back of my neck, however, gently came around and held onto the tail of my bow. I sucked in a breath, but James didn't pull into and untie my bow. I can't speak. James lifted his lips from my neck and gently leaned his forehead to mine, rubbing nose to nose with me. He was gently breathing fast, softly red in the face as deep into the moment I was.
I won't go any further if you don't want me to.
I could feel the hold of his mind-altering spell fade away. I still felt hot. Something told me that I wanted more, but at the same time I wasn't sure if I truly did want to give in anymore. Keep going. I opened the opportunity and I was enjoying it as much as he was. I wanted more and I wasn't going to let him keep going. I was going to let him keep going. He'd go. Go. He promised not to go far, but this wasn't far enough for me. I gently leaned in and kissed him, giving him silent approval to keep going. I could feel him pull on the tail of my bow, releasing it and letting it follow his hand off from around my neck. He moved the ribbon to the empty seat before gently unbuttoning the top half of my blouse, going no lower than above my stomach. Ooh. Desire in my body drove me to move the sleeves of my shirt down my arms, escaping from it and letting the shirt hang around my belly. As he began to ravage my neck and shoulders in hot kisses, I leaned my head back and let a pleasurable sigh escape my lips. The pull in my body from him, draining my energy, and had slowed immensely, almost completely stopping. However, James kept touching and kissing me regardless. He was full, but he was as hot as I was and kept loving on my skin and on me. I couldn't even comprehend how much time we spent making out. I was so lost in pleasure that I didn't care. Call it sinful, but I didn't care. I loved its touch, his kiss, his heat. I desired it beyond anything at that moment, even as he lowered his kisses down my chest to just above my bra. Whoa. Whoa, Sonny. Hold up, man. My heart was beating wildly in my chest. Something about James drew me to him like a moth to a flame. I didn't know if it was his aura of superiority or his gentle smile, but something made my heart quicken for him. It couldn't have been love, but it was too passionate to be lust. What was it? However, I began to feel dizzy, seeing the ceiling start to spin almost wildly. I gripped onto James' shoulders, trying to signal him to stop, but my mind faded to black before I could let out another sound. Great. Don't get too passionate. Don't get too passionate. That's all I have to say. That's all I have to say. Don't get passionate, guys. I can't. This game. Oh my god. It felt good. I didn't care that I was blacking out. I felt warm and fuzzy in the darkness. I never knew indulging in that kind of passion would be that good. And now it just waited to awaken, hopefully in a good way. My eyes eventually fluttered open, adjusting to the sight around me. I felt familiar silks underneath me, letting me know I was in bed. I slowly sat up, stretching from the tiredness that still lingered. I felt a very soft pain on my neck and shoulders, and I could feel swollen lips pulse gently and healing. However, when I looked down at my body, I saw that my shirt had been pulled back and rebuttoned as if nothing happened between me and James. I was just missing my ribbon. Before I turned to get out of bed, though, I spotted my ribbon on the pillow beside the one I slept on. It was tied in a nice bow around a red rose that was freshly bloomed, with a small note attached to it. I gently slipped the note from the tie and opened it to read it.
I apologize for indulging myself as I did. I hope that you will not dislike me when you awaken.
Oh. I stared at the note, unbelieving of what I read. Why would I dislike him? I let it happen and I enjoyed it. It was cute, though, to imagine him asking for forgiveness for something we both did and enjoyed. I brought the rose to my nose and gently inhaled its soft fragrance. I indulged myself too, James. I looked at the time out of curiosity. Large white numbers on my phone showed 5:30 p.m. Yikes, 4 hours of being knocked out and I still feel tired? It was Sunday, so I allowed to sleep longer if I wanted to. The remainder of the night passed by, surprising uneventful. The boys continued to train with each other, but were kind enough to stop and make me dinner. I was glad for that. Unsurprisingly, the food was perfect, but it felt a little empty without the boys to eat with me. They most likely have already eaten, but still I felt lonely. I couldn't let it bother me. I ate and went back to my room to study and sleep. Surprisingly, I felt good going to bed that night. I felt like I could have a peaceful sleep after the previous rough nights I've had. It felt good. I drifted to sleep and woke up flawlessly the next morning. No grogginess, no aches, perfectly energized and bright-eyed. Man, how long has it been since I had that good of sleep? Looked to my alarm clock. I woke up 10 minutes before my alarm. Well, hey, I must be lucky today. Karma owed me some luck. After all I had gone through the merely a handful of days, I deserved to get some good luck. Yes, we do. Ecstatic for the day ahead, I turned off my alarms before they could ring and got dressed. However, my phone started to quickly buzz from an incoming text. Huh? Who's texting me this early?
Yo, Anderson! You're carpooling with us from now on. We're not letting you waste your money on a bus. Get ready and be at your gate at 7 stat.
I smiled. My friends were the best. I couldn't drive yet, and I didn't have a car, so it was awesome that my friends would let me carpool. I checked the time. 6:30. Perfect, I can eat some breakfast before they come. I packed my bag and carried it downstairs towards the kitchen. As I entered the dining room, I saw a plate of eggs, toast, and bacon sitting on the table. A fresh steaming cup of coffee sat next to the plate with some sugar and creamer on the side. I walked to the table and couldn't believe what I was seeing. Who made this? As I spoke aloud, a small red note caught my attention. Have a good day. Yours. My heart skipped a beat as I finished. I could tell it was from one of the boys. Maybe it was from him? I smiled before putting the note in my bag and eating up. The food was so delicious I devoured every amazing bite. I looked at the time again. Time to go. Oh! Okay, Charlie. My dog. My dog is so silly. I quickly rushed to the door, checking myself in the passing mirror. I wasn't wanting to impress anyone, but I still needed to look decent. Before I could reach the handle of the door, however, someone took my hand. Huh? I turned to see James, who was holding my hand with a concerned frown on his face.
My name.
Your name?
My true name isn't James, miss. I want you to know my real name if something were to happen.
His true name? What did he mean? Why was he telling me this now? I remembered reading about a demon's name from the journal I read yesterday. If you knew a demon's true name, you could summon them to you, no matter where you were or where they were. James gently pulled me to him and leaned close to whisper in my ear.
My name is Raystrow.
As he said his name, I could feel it lock into my memory. Something in my head would make sure I would never forget it. James pulled away and smiled at me, despite still carrying worry in his eyes.
If you're in any danger, call my name. I promise that I'll come and help you.
I stared up at James, unable to say anything. I could only nod in response. James smiled before kissing my hand and heading into the dining room. Something told me that name would be used eventually. And right on cue, Naomi drove up to the gates with Zuzu waving me down. I rushed out the door and headed to school, talking about the homework and the coming day. And we'll stop there, because school. Who likes school? Ugh. No. Stay in school. But yeah, we're going to end it there. Thank you for watching, and thank you for 30 subscribers. I appreciate it. I hope you enjoy this.